Our first cluster presentation, representing the Quince Orchard Cluster, Paul Morrison.
Good evening, President Durso, Superintendent Smith, and members of the board. It's an honor to speak with you again tonight on behalf of the parents of the more than 6,800 students attending Quince Orchard Public Schools in the Quince Orchard Cluster. We appreciate your efforts on their behalf. This operating budget has been presented within the context of a system that's still growing, a system where there is a notable achievement gap for our African American and Latino populations, and a system that recognizes a need to improve career and technical education. We endorse this perspective of the budget and support the superintendent's initiatives to continue to provide the best education to all our students, to continue to improve the educational achievements of all our students, and to provide wider and more comprehensive career and technical opportunities for them as they join the working world. The superintendent has also proposed budget realignments and reassignments of duties and roles involving the supervision and direction of accelerated enriched instruction, special education, and ESOL programs. Communities in Quince Orchard served by these programs are expressing concern that the services offered by these realigned and reassigned positions will be diminished and less effective. We urge the board to carefully weigh the consequences of these new organizational structures with a keen eye focused on maintaining the standards to which these programs currently adhere. We feel these programs contribute in no small degree to the reputation for which our school system is known, and that these realignments are likely to undermine. My remarks will be brief. As always, thank you for the hard work you do for Montgomery County students. We look forward to working with you and other elected representatives in securing the funding for the fiscal year 2019 operating budget. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Morrison. Next, from the Northwood Cluster, Michele Moller.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Smith, President Durso, Vice President Evans, and members of the Board of Education. Thank you for the opportunity to provide input on the 2019 operating budget. I am Michele Moller, one of 3 Northwood Cluster coordinators and the parent of a senior at Northwood, an 8th grader at Loiterman, and a 5th grader at Forest Knolls. Yeah. The Northwood Cluster fully supports the superintendent's mission of creating a school system where all of our students are given the opportunity and the tools that they need to excel. In particular, the expansion of dual language programs like we have at Kent Mill Elementary, increasing foreign language exposure in other elementary schools, and expanding access to the Maryland Seal of Biliteracy will prepare our students to live and work in the increasingly multicultural environment of our county and the world. In this multicultural environment, the Northwood Cluster strongly believes that immersion programs still have an important place in our education system. Silver Spring International Middle School wants to ensure that its Spanish and French immersion programs continue to thrive, even as the county changes the immersion program at Rolling Terrace. The language immersion programs at Sims are an integral part of the school's international focus, which includes the International Baccalaureate Middle Years program. And having 2 immersion programs is a unique offering that draws students from across the county. We ask that in addition to consulting with the Rolling Terrace community about upcoming changes, Sims administration and parents have an opportunity to provide input as changes are made to Rolling Terrace's program. We want to ensure that the successful Spanish immersion program at Sims continues to serve the students of the DCC. Most importantly, should MCPS consider making any changes to the Sims immersion program, it is imperative that the school community be part of that decision-making process and not be notified only after a decision has already been made. Kent Mill, with the immersion program, has a strong interest in seeing all its students thrive and succeed. And to that end, they request that the levels of ESOL staffing at their school be increased and that for the ESOL teachers there have a heavy caseload. They also request adequate staffing for the accelerated and enriched programs such as compacted math and Jacob's Ladder. The Arcola PTA board is excited about the potential that the extended school year proposal could have in our community. We appreciate that Arcola was chosen for this innovative program and are eager to learn more about how it can benefit our student population. While we still have questions about logistics and implementation of this plan and are working to communicate with the broader school community to gather more input, the Arcola PTA board supports school system innovation that addresses the achievement gap, equity, and summer slide. Programs like this build an equitable community. We look forward to continuing to learn more about this proposal and working with our community to ensure that all students succeed. Recent extreme weather has highlighted the issues that we have with HVAC and maintenance in our schools. This year marks the third year in a row that pipes have burst over winter break at Northwood High School, this time destroying a computer lab and affecting our wellness center. We ask that in the future, precautions be taken before winter break to ensure that our pipes do not freeze and burst. Extra insulation around pipes or keeping the rooms at a slightly higher temperature during especially frigid weather could help prevent future pipe bursts and could save schools money and time lost in repairs and replacement of damaged equipment. The reduction of funding for substitutes for professional development days comes as a surprise in this budget, since MCPS has always had a strong reputation for providing substantial professional development. The assumption is that teachers will only be able to engage in professional development on their ever-dwindling professional days, or will have to sacrifice their evenings and summers to do professional development classes. However, how can we ask our teachers who work so hard during the day to spend additional time after grading papers, after planning lessons, and after taking care of their families to do even more work? This cut in substitutes will contribute to either teacher burnout or lack of participation in professional development, lowering the quality of the instruction MCPS offers. In closing, we want to express our strong support for additional career pathways for our high school students, recovery programs, and alternative paths to graduation. We hope that recovery programs will be made available to any students at risk for opiate abuse. We appreciate the increase in the number of school psychologists to help our students who need emotional support. Supporting our students emotionally, physically, and academically is the job of both the parents and the schools, and this budget appears to be a step in the right direction. Thank you for your time this evening and for your continuing commitment to the students of the Northwood Cluster, the DCC, and all of MCPS.
Thanks, Ms. Moller. Next, from the Wheaton Cluster, and obviously you are not Mary O'Driscoll.
And I'm actually from Einstein.
Okay.
Mary couldn't make it, so I'm here for Einstein.
Okay. Go ahead, sir.
It's Chris Rutledge for the Einstein Cluster. Thank you once more for the opportunity to come to speak to all of you about the needs of the children and family of Montgomery County. It's clear that with your ongoing support, we're moving in the right direction. Under your leadership, we've seen increased focus on closing the achievement and opportunity gaps that still exist in MCPS. This is of special importance to the Einstein Cluster and really all of the schools of the DCC. As we've previously noted, DCC's challenges do not exist in a vacuum. DCC students represent nearly a quarter of MCPS, and the issues we face will be a bellwether for the ones MCPS as a whole will face in the future. In your December 5th presentation, you had stated that the work we need to do and our budget are built around ensuring all students have access and opportunity to learn at high levels. Einstein respectively suggests some ways to make this promise real. First, Woodland requests its own designated gifted specialist. In fact, they request gifted and talented specialists in every school so that differentiation and challenge can be ensured. Yeah. The designated magnet programs of MCPS have so very few slots. One solution would be to increase the number of seats in these programs. This, however, is incredibly costly given transportation and other logistical concerns. It also has a detrimental impact of cherry-picking successful students from local schools. Yes. How much better would it be if we could get these students who are deserving and capable of engaging in challenging programs, those opportunities in their home schools, in their communities, among their friends? By increasing these opportunities in the home schools, we can help lift up all students in these schools. Increased support for paraeducators, particularly in schools with high student-teacher ratios, is another cost-effective way to support schools and meet learning objectives. Principals are often forced to choose between safety and classroom support. Funding for adding 1 or 2 additional paraeducators in such schools would allow for additional instructional support for teachers who are working across a huge divide of abilities in their classrooms. Spanish language immersion is another program that could benefit from growth, particularly in our part of the county. Oakland Terrace will be starting a dual language immersion program next fall with the kindergartners. Oakland Terrace parents are thrilled about this. The only downside is that older students will not receive any of the Spanish instruction. With the support of their administration, they've started a petition to add a Spanish specials teacher to teach Spanish the way that students are currently taking music and art. As we move into an increasingly multicultural world, certainly all students could benefit from this, and we encourage MCPS to consider this model of language enrichment for additional elementary schools. There are many elementary schools in the DCC that would be ideal places to pilot such a program. Above all, we must revisit the role of AEI. It has served as a resource for equalizing opportunities across schools. The AEI office not only develops curriculum enrichment, more fundamentally, it provides professional development and supports effective implementation of basic high-quality instruction and differentiation in all schools throughout MCPS. Disbanding it now is moving in the wrong direction. Another issue deserving of our attention is mental health awareness and general school emotional safety. MCPS has seen several recent suicides across its schools. We know we can't prevent all tragedies, and that we live in a part of the nation that puts immense pressure on success, and our children internalize that. We know that the safety of our children is foremost in your minds as well as ours. But note as you're compiling spending plans that the support that we in the school community can offer in the way of counseling and teaching teachers how to spot the warning signs of anxiety and depression can help support parents and make ours a safer community overall. This could include increased clarity around how school safety and school climate can be improved to include not only physical but psychological safety. In spring of last year, MCPS launched a comprehensive review of protocols, practices, and infrastructure related to the critical imperative of maintaining safe, orderly learning environments for all students. But we lack an inventory of programs related to conflict and violent prevention and well-being programs that indicates that such programs may not be part of the core curriculum. Increasing incidents of hate and the regularity of school fights point to the need to address these issues more systematically, including more fully supporting teachers and staff and bringing best practices in developing positive school climate to the classroom. This could include not just classroom management techniques, but also ways of figuring out how it ties into the curriculum itself. MCPS must lead on this and coordinate the efforts of all the individual schools. Local schools often have solutions that might benefit others, and a more central effort could foster an environment where ideas are more widely shared. Thank you again for your time.
Thanks, Mr. Rutledge. Next, from the Blair cluster, although I'm listed as Natisha Johnson-Samuel, I believe it's going to be Therese Gibson.
That would be correct. Thank you, Dr. Durso. I'm Therese.
Representing the Bethesda-Chevy Chase cluster, Jesse Nickelson.
Thank you, President Durso and distinguished members of the Board of Education. My name is Jesse Nickelson. I'm one of the cluster representatives from BCC. I have a daughter who's in 9th grade at Bethesda-Chevy Chase High School, and I have a 6th grader at Westland Middle School. Both of them came from Westbrook Elementary School. Myself, Jeremy Marcus, and Tim Wolf are pleased to submit this testimony regarding the funding of the operating budget. We represent the parents and over 7,000 students that attend the 10 high school, middle, and elementary schools across the cluster. We are encouraged by the effort of the proposed operating budget to keep class sizes from increasing, placing more teachers in schools, and preserving negotiated staff benefits. We are also encouraged by the expansion of programs to increase college attendance and success. The greater BCC cluster community appreciates all these efforts. In light of the recent MCPS student suicides and high degree of stress many BCC high school students experience, there is a need for counselors who are well-trained and qualified to address students' mental health concerns and to aid principals in anticipating, preventing, and retrospectively addressing these events that have broad-scale impacts, as well as other smaller-scale events and individual student needs. Our students and parents have an unprecedented access to information and misinformation via social media. Our schools, which sit in the heart of all of our communities, need to be places where students can find help and support in understanding tragedies being shared through social media that are nearby, or in the case of Westland Middle School, happening just outside their front door, where students walk by every day. As our cluster experiences changes in school enrollment, and as there is increased budget pressure at MCPS, the cluster advocates for maintaining an assistant principal at all schools, including smaller elementary schools. The assistant principal plays a crucial role in school operations, including the special programs run in the schools. I testified 2 years ago as vice president of the PTA for Westbrook Elementary School for an assistant principal. Westbrook has an ED program, which has a very high volume and number of IEP meetings, requiring another administrator to help run the school and be present in those meetings in order to meet all the standards. As a matter of fact, the principal of Westbrook and her faculty are here tonight in support of that need and the need for other schools. We have increasing need for ESOL and special education instruction in some cluster schools, and these needs should be recognized and resourced. In order to put more teachers into schools, there will be a significant reduction of positions at the central office, and we are concerned about how this will impact the level of support offered to individual schools and would like clarity on how this will affect the operations of advanced programs as well as special education. The loss of AEI as a division and distributing the responsibilities into multiple top-level branches without coordination will likely hinder the goal to transform MCPS into a more effective public education institution and ensure that all means all. There is also concern over the loss of cluster special education supervisors. The cluster supervisors bring a broad countywide perspective and IDEA expertise to the table. They're a valuable resource at IEP meetings where there are complex student and sometimes family issues. We ask the Board of Education to consider these concerns as the budget is finalized and to provide the community with as much clarity as possible in regards to how the central office changes will impact how schools operate. We recognize that opening a new school comes with growing pains. Bus routes for Silver Creek Middle School are overcrowded, causing an increase in behavioral issues, safety risks, and prevents students from having the ability to guest ride home with friends, which promotes building new friendships and relationships as 3 schools merge. Bus shortages are causing overscheduling, no leeway for traffic, resulting in buses consistently arriving late to Silver Creek this fall. Students are missing instructional time from first period as a result. Farm students sometimes either have to skip breakfast or be even later to class when buses arrive late. While we anticipate that the bus issues will resolve next year when the 8th grade class is no longer all at Westland, but split between Westland and Silver Creek in the same manner as the 6th and 7th grades, we want to make sure it is given attention as the operating budget is prepared for presentation to the County Council. Thank you for this opportunity.
Good evening, President Durso, board members, and Superintendent Smith. I'm Sally McCarthy, and I'm representing the students and families from the Whitman cluster. I'm here tonight with my fellow cluster coordinators, Yvonne Van Lowe and Jason Sartori. We also have a lot of parents here tonight, including a fellow Whitman parent and my friend Gina Michell. She'll speak specifically to the curricular needs of students with disabilities later on. We are seriously concerned about the diminishing county resources and the proposed cuts and realignments in the budget, especially with regard to elementary school staffing and special education. It may be true that elementary school enrollments are in decline generally across the county, but it's not the case in our cluster. Bannockburn and Bradley Hills are again above MCPS enrollment projections. We also don't believe that the enrollment wave crashing at the middle school and high school levels is short-term, at least for us. The current 9th grade at Whitman is the largest ever. This class is 70 students larger than when it exited Pyle in June. The Whitman cluster has many communities of older homes subject to renovation and rebuilds. These homes have created a steady pipeline of families with school-age children. More importantly, as we've stated for 3 years now, MCPS projections don't account for upcoming residential development at Westbard. So where does this leave us right now? Many of our elementary school classes are at or exceed MCPS guidelines. Principals are faced with staffing decisions every day that force them to squeeze the schedule. By this squeeze, I mean that administrators often increase social studies and science classes in order to make smaller classes in reading and math. And by smaller, I'm not suggesting these classes have less than 27 kids in grades 3 through 5. In fact, we have several schools with compacted math classes comprised of 28 to 30 students and social studies and science classes with well over 30 kids. This juggling act requires principals to lean heavily on paraeducators, reading initiative teachers, and staff development specialists to meet class size guidelines whenever it's possible. Given these near impossible staffing tasks, we can't support recommendations to cut reading specialist and paraeducator time at the elementary school level. We also believe that proposed cuts and decentralization of special education and AEI staffs has the possibility to jeopardize the support that these students with most in need of individualized instruction. Pyle and Whitman class sizes are likewise imbalanced. For example, Pyle has music electives with 90 students, while most social studies and science classes are above 30 students. These large class sizes allow, again, math and English to sit below or at the recommended cap. There are similar class size compromises made at Whitman. Some courses are combined honors and on grade level. My own daughter sits in a Spanish class that's combined honors on grade level with 36 kids. When there's no option for teachers or administrators to add staff, we're concerned that MCPS repeatedly turns to increasing class sizes as the default solution in tight budget climates. In spite of these challenges, we do remain excited that MCPS is constructing bigger schools to accommodate growth. We're thankful for this. We're grateful for the support our cluster has received in the CIP. We believe larger schools may hold the possibility for increased student opportunities, both academically and socially. But we also believe this period of great change opens a window for MCPS and PTAs to begin to deliver a deliberate and thoughtful conversation about how larger schools affect teaching and learning. I'm referring to understanding the real student experience here, not just the numbers that tell us how many kids make it to algebra by 8th grade or score well on a PARCC test. So far this school year, we are hearing and feeling student and staff reverberations in our rapidly expanding schools. Like so many of our friends in MCPS, we have students in overcrowded classes, teachers constrained by continuous changes to the curriculum, the calendar, and testing deadlines, and administrators hamstrung not only by the academic management demands of their jobs, but also constrained by the demands of managing large, overutilized, and tired physical plants. We believe that this conversation must start with a re-examination of school-level staff allocations and class size guidelines. We have schools across all levels with administrative and, more importantly, counseling teams that reflect MCPS school enrollment levels of the past. Simply put, these bigger schools do not have the necessary human infrastructure to buttress our enormous teaching and learning environments. We cannot expect to improve all student outcomes if we don't refine our understanding and collect more precise data on how these larger environments affect outcomes. We urge MCPS to form a task force to examine staffing allocations and revisit class size guidelines. We thank you for the chance to share our views on the proposed operating budget. The Whitman cluster is committed to improving the educational experience and outcome of all students, and we look forward to working with you on the issue of proportional staffing and class size guidelines. Thanks.
Thank you both. Next, Cynthia Simonson from the Magruder cluster.
Thank you, Dr. Smith and members of the board. My name is Cynthia Simonson, and representing the Magruder cluster. We really appreciate these strategic priorities, and this is what I'll speak to this evening. To start, our community is very enthusiastic, and we embrace the superintendent's vision for expanding programs in computer science, coding, and robotics. Our middle schools used last year's stipends to expand these activities. We hope to see those stipends continue. However, we do have somewhat of a concern about the disproportionate and uneven range of successes experienced in our high schools with regard to computer science. I've attached the last 2 years of the AP Computer Science exam scores for our county to my testimony. We request that the professional development budget align such that when a student enrolls in a high-level computer science course, that student is assured access to a high-quality and cutting-edge instruction regardless of their zip code. We applaud the superintendent's focus on equal opportunity schools. Magruder is very proud to report 102 underrepresented students are accessing AP courses this school year. But we want to reinforce your concerns that the board expressed during the presentation in the fall. Supports must be in place for these students. Dr. Wilson posts OSA reports that show very uneven successes in AP classes. Magruder parents have not seen the 2017 results as yet, but we remain concerned about the oversight of the course content. We understand MCPS does not set the curriculum. We understand what is taught is at the discretion of the instructor, but we are a school system. And as a system, we want all our students in all schools to be well supported. That isn't reflected in the scores posted by OSA. So as the superintendent prioritizes EOS expansion, we ask for the correlating support to be prioritized also. Our Magruder parents maintain high expectations of all our students. We do not accept access as a substitute for success. We support the superintendent's priority for increased accelerated and enriched instruction. None of our schools are magnets, and AEI has been invaluable, although an understaffed resource, in equalizing the opportunities for our children that stay in our local schools. No other office has been able to support parents and teachers in this way. Dr. Smith, you have been a stalwart supporter of our students, and because of that, we actually do appreciate your vision, downsizing central office positions and moving more positions into OSSI. It sounds terrific. But with our boots on the ground, we see an inordinate impact on 3 special populations in this reorganization: ESOL, our highly able learners, and our special education students. In this move, we see a splintering of leadership and anticipate the OSSI directors, who I adore, won't have the trifecta of specialized expertise in meeting the needs of ESOL, highly able, and special ed students. So, in this new structure, the instructional specialists would function as classroom advocates for the students, resources for the families, bridge the cultural and emotional divides, provide the professional development for staff, and help create differentiated opportunities, carry out the big picture oversight functions, and collaborate with staff on complicated cases, all functions previously carried by those supervisors and directors. This workload is then on top of the responsibilities assumed in the blended team structure that refocuses OSSI away from just principals and instead prioritizes the community from pre-K all the way through 12. It sounds terrific, but history cautions when something has to give, inevitably special populations bear the greatest cost. We celebrate the emphasis on additional language immersion. We fully embrace the seal of biliteracy. We ask that you engage parents and teachers in that conversation long before the decisions are made, however. We are creating these plans together with transparency and clarity. On the topic of wellness, our cluster has grieved its share of opiate overdoses and abuses. So we're grateful for the launch of the Recovery Education Program. We ask the board to ensure students, whether at risk or in recovery from a substance use disorder, be served with this program. And finally, MCPS creates so many wonderful services. You have excellent communication staff funded in this budget. Please use them to communicate directly with parents going forward and remedy the situation we have now where some schools send out information and other schools do not. Thank you so much for your time. On behalf of the Colonels, thank you.
Good evening. Dr. Smith, President Durso, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to present testimony here tonight. You all look very tired. I'm Michelle Gluck. I'm president of the Gifted and Talented Association of Montgomery County, and I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the tens of thousands of students in MCPS schools who need accelerated and enriched instruction. I urge you to reconsider the plan to eliminate the only countywide leadership position dedicated to the growth and potential of highly able students, and to diffuse the already tiny staff devoted to these students' interests into offices whose mission is already large, complicated, and all-consuming. You have been hearing and will continue to hear from countless families and students who have benefited immensely from AEI's work. GTA started an online petition on Sunday that, as of this afternoon, had 1,600 signatures and counting. When you receive that petition in the near future, you will see some of the breadth and depth of the impact of AEI's mission and accomplishments. But I'm going to talk tonight about why I believe the underlying premise for the reorganization of AEI, while undoubtedly well-intentioned, is not well-founded. I acknowledge the budget pressures MCPS is facing. We understand that many worthy efforts are being scaled or cut. We understand the appeal across-the-board cuts and the temptation to believe that overall efficiencies in the office can be found to preserve service levels while saving money by eliminating staff capacity. We also see and applaud Dr. Smith's commitment to increasing the access to accelerated and enriched instruction, both by increasing the number of students receiving enriched curricula at the elementary level and increasing central office investment in talent development and identification processes that uncover and enroll highly able students from every community. We are excited and hopeful that this initiative will continue into the middle and high schools as well, but we do not think this will happen if the mission of serving advanced level students ceases to have its own champion and instead becomes one of the many responsibilities of individuals and offices already tasked with other and larger goals. Furthermore, despite all the progress in increasing magnet capacity, most gifted students do not learn in magnet programs, but in their local schools. And that will and should continue to be true even with the new capacity. I've been directly involved in the Choice Study Response Plan, and I respectfully disagree that the leadership provided by AEI can be eliminated without significant degradation in MCPS's ability to expand and equalize opportunities for all students. In a large system with a large and compelling mission around the opportunity gap, subset populations get lost unless somebody's looking out for them. And while I agree that every educator should take responsibility for meeting the needs of highly able students, the reality is that they cannot unless they are supported, trained, recognized, and applauded for doing so. Historically, MCPS has not adequately done any of those things very well. And I think this is largely because special needs of highly able students are not well stood or respected. We need both expertise and leadership to change this. As you'll see from my prepared remarks, there are other things I would say about this, but I don't want to exceed my time. I just want to say that these students need expertise and leadership at the table. Thank you very much.